Jeremiah 23 and Hoods. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about the housing situation dealing with rents. They got the government has approved the money, but there are people that are facing evictions that the landlords still want them out because of, I guess, wrong attitude, all kind of things. There are a lot of people that have got involved into the housing situation because of drugs and because of they got deeper into their situation, unemployment, and people that just didn't want to pay the rent, wanted to stack the money, blow the money, or whatever. It seems to be a popular trend with your people that just don't care, okay? But people that do care, they did everything they could to look for jobs, etc. What I don't understand is there's a large amount of people with unemployment. Why you wouldn't pay your rent if you were getting unemployment? Man, good luck. Because if you get an eviction, you're probably not going to be able to find another place. Try Nevada, try California, and see what happens to you. So, for those that do go that far, we know there's probably a lot to do with if you got unemployment and didn't pay your rent, drugs. So drugs got a lot. Why they won't sanction the countries that send them and stop them at the border? Whole nother subject, whole nother topic. So let's just deal with the ones that are working poor, who really, in many cases, can't find jobs. You do have that kind of situation. They're getting their extended unemployment. And then there are people that once this is paid off, immediately the landlords will move in eviction. For those that didn't qualify for unemployment and couldn't find a job, they got done with work. So the real poorest of the poor, working poor, it got done pretty bad. And of course you didn't have any job, you just, good luck. I mean, what can you say? How people are surviving, the mass homelessness is all overlooked. But there is a group that doesn't understand if they're out there looking for a job, and if it wasn't for the unemployment, God knows what the country would look like. The landowners, landlords, we've been seeing them crying around the nation, please give us the money. Crying, literally, landlords. People that own properties that rent it out to trusted people. You can't get mad and blame them. Many of them are struggling, trying to flip a house, trying to do what they do. So they're hurting. But the question I want to ask, no one says anything about these banks who hold the mortgages. Private banks, private institutions. They're the one holding the mortgages. Now, when they got bailed out by President Obama, it seemed like the Democrats always have something to do with a lot of printing out a lot of money, right? And it seemed like the big cats, the big fish in the pond, seem like they always win. Undercover. Just look at the drugs flowing into the country with the guns. Now, who's benefiting from that? The cartels live in palaces. You know, it seemed like at this point in July, about the 29th, it seemed like they could care less. Oh, well. But people are making money. 3-strike law, Democrats. President Biden signs it into law. And I'm not a Republican. You better. I would never be a Republican. For what? Shh. Come on. They'll lock away all my brothers permanently over drug charges. So, which, by the way, the Biden administration is doing right now through the raids in Chicago and Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York. They're not saying anything, but the feds have been given the green light, which the Democratic mayor in Chicago will not let Trump bring in any federal agents. I noticed they didn't even put her based on the one that fought Trump about the feds not coming into Chicago, decided. They went to the police chief on it. So that, but you know, it's amazing how they manipulate the situation. Look, man, it's the same thing. You're letting the feds in. You just aren't holding the mayor accountable for it. Would be hypocrisy or you to show her face because you know how she fought the Trump administration. The bodies have been dropping, so they have to go in there. Feel sorry for the brothers that's dirty. You got to have a gun to walk to the store. So, of course, they're going to find guns and drugs. And a lot of shot fired at the border about the situation. The banks that got bailed out were bailed out by Obama. They said he had to do it. You had Bush coming along and got to do it. Bail them out with taxpayers' dollars. Really. And the banks are the ones holding the notes on the properties. Yeah. Wanting their money. I wonder, did they add compound interest? Did you hear any statements in this pandemic about banks? I know credit cards charge compound interest if you couldn't pay your credit card bill. Compound interest. Do you hear what I'm saying? Banks did nothing. What are they doing? The banks that holding the people's money. What are they doing? But putting pressure on landlords to be able to pay the notes. Pressure. That's what you see out there. Pressure. You know, it's amazing how the media or no one will cover the banks. Why won't they just look the other way? They're quiet while the government circles the money back around to the banks because the mortgages of the investors have to be paid. So I'm not against investors, especially single private home investors. Not against them crying, man. They got the bank is putting the pressure. No one wants to deal with the banks. Banks are dirty, got bailed out, and won't work with the owners of these properties that I know of. And then you have this undercurrent. You won't know about it until you are looking for an apartment. And so if you're on disability, Social Security, buyer beware. If you're in a place, don't lose your place. Whatever you do. In California and Nevada, it is now you have to make 2.5 to 3 times the amount. So if your Social Security check, I know some people getting $1,000, I believe. Yes, you would have to have $3,000 income. They know you don't have the income. They want you to have at least 2.5 times, so $2,500 if the rent is $1,000. No, you have to have that income coming in. So you have to. So if you're totally disabled or you're disabled, simply put, you probably won't be able to move. Give you a heads up on it, and it's ruthless. You better believe it. It's everywhere. 2.5 to 3 times the amount. So there's nothing but long waiting lists. I know one person that's been waiting for over 900 and they're number 941 in subsidized housing for the poor. 1,000 evictions got to happen before that person, and they told me they put their name on the list, the waiting list for subsidized housing, disabled person, 2 years ago. So that's not even an option. And if you was to call Nevada right now, housing, the public housing is closed down, but they can't take no more applications. They can't do nothing. Strapped. We got a serious housing project for the working poor. It's a volcano. You better believe it. San Diego, California, you have people sleeping in cars, working two jobs, and some working 3 jobs over in the Bay Area, and they still can't afford an apartment. They can't afford the 3 times the amount. And they're the ones that's making the millionaires rich. If they all stop saying, look, unless we got a place, we're not coming to work, how many people are going to do that? So there is no protest. So banks win by keeping the pressure on the landlords. Landlords are going to win eventually because they're going to get their money. But the landlords, private, individual, and corporate groups, even groups from overseas like Chinese, and you'd be surprised how many foreigners own your apartment complexes in your city. So when you look at that overall picture, Micah 2:1-2 says that there is a people that devise evil upon their beds and how to take someone's house. Okay? And that could be, if you're the working poor, you're devising, well, I'm not going to pay the rent. And you have the power in your hand because you have unemployment. Or it could be, in other words, you're squatting on the property. Or it could be just simply the person just don't have the money and the landlord is ruthless. Anyway, when you devise a scheme to try to either beat the landlord or you devise a scheme to plunder the poor, like 3 times the amount really, at one time, if you were disabled or on SSI, you easily would be accepted because of the automatic payment, long as the rent was in the same alignment as what you make. No problem, they welcome you, whatever. That's all gone away. So if you're on Social Security or disability, I got news for you. You better hold on to your places because it is 3 times the amount now. 3 times, 2.5. Why? You won't be on your news. Just when you go to apply for a place, private, individual, or individual group, private. No matter how you get to it, if it's privatized in a free market, free democracy, capitalist society, pretty much the private owners can do whatever they want to. They charge whatever they want. They own it. It's their property. Now, how that does in society, I don't agree with that at all. I believe in some government regulation of some kind. Look at San Francisco. Good luck. Look at Los Angeles, $2,500 for a 1-bedroom. That's what private does. Rather be private owners of themselves, or with IOUs to banks. I understand that, but they bought it for one purpose. Remember, they're in this for the money, not the service housing for Americans. This is all about money. We've debased, we've become like scum crabs crawling out of the barrel. We'll never think, how can we help solve the homeless situation? They're going to look at the government and say, yeah, y'all solve it. The government's not going to do anything. So homeless over the next 10 years will increase. Period. It's just going to happen. But what I'm giving you a heads up on, if you know anybody that's disabled or on Social Security, you tell them. And they live in Nevada or California, don't you dare lose your place. Hold on to what you have. And if you have good credit now, try to do the best you can. Because the banks are not going to let up the pressure on the landlords. And the landlords are waiting on the federal government to give them their money. And during this time of COVID-19, undercoverly, yes, most landlords, owners of properties do want 3 times the amount of the rent. So that puts $3,000 a month. Put you, at least you got to make about $45,000 a year. How many people you know work at Walmart make $45,000 a year? McDonald's, that run the clothing factories. The minimum wage is supposed to go to 15. I don't know if it went or not, but let's say we left it, conservatives, what they argue for, let's say we left it at $10 an hour. How many jobs do they got to work to make $3,000 a month? What if they can't find the jobs because companies like General Motors pulled out Detroit? What if these companies, what about the companies that go overseas? What about the massive influx of immigrants now, 1 million? This is all on the Democrat watch, man. And then you have the housing problem. And yes, they're trying to help get the money out. But I'm telling you, brother, what y'all don't know, it's going to be so hard. And this is such a shame for so-called greatest nation on God's green earth. You have, I can go down to like Denmark, you have the Netherlands, you have Sweden, Switzerland. Man, they don't have this problem. They're socialist societies. They just don't have it, bro. Yeah, you have it in Venezuela, but for the most part, they're not going to gouge the poor that's making most of the, paying most of the taxes, like we do in America. The poor, the rich get loopholes. So they're not going to reward the poor after a worldwide epidemic with, oh, you can't get an apartment, knowing that the person may be disabled or on Social Security. Unless you make now, all of a sudden the rules change 3 times a month. I know a person that left their apartment, went back to the same apartment, and they needed 3 times the amount. They left because of the plague. So you're looking at a ruthless, very bold, lewd presentation of oppression. Dealing with housing, Micah 2:1-2, is very serious. If we only knew the magnitude of what's going on undercover as far as the criteria to get in just an apartment. So I appeal to the churches. So what are you going to do for your disabled and people that are on Social Security, faithful tithers in there? You got people that bring offerings, you got members. I appeal to you to try to come up with some kind of plan. Here's a couple scriptures deal with money. Deuteronomy 14, Deuteronomy 15, Deuteronomy 26, Malachi 3, 10, and 11, and 2 Corinthians 8, 9. Those systems were designed for necessities of saints, as well as take care of the pastor. In our culture, of course, most scholars will agree, we do not have that kind of setup in this country. We're not Hebrewic. We're not set up like Israel, where the land goes back to the original owners and stuff like that. We don't practice that. We practice capitalism, and everything goes, of course. Everything goes when you have that kind of setup, because the bottom line, people get in that to make money, not to be a hero, not to be some kind of savior. People get in it to make money. I was going to play a clip on one of the scholars as far as them discussing the setup. But the bottom line, we're a capitalist society. Individuals, groups, we're all individual. There is nothing pouring back like in communist or socialistic societies that pours down from the rich and trickle down economics. Everything goes to the top. Even our churches are structured like that. The working poor people go out and work, and they give to the top. The top oversees. The top has the access to the assets, which are in the bank, all the money, the title, the name, the LLC, whatever they got going, non-profit, however. And they also, the priest can participate scripturally from the tithes and offerings. However, in addition to that, may I suggest that we set aside some kind of money, if you're worth your salt, for people in your congregations that might be suffering. Now, I'm not saying you're not salty in other areas. I'm saying being salty in the area of money. Jeremiah 23 and Hus deals with oppression, and is going to deal with money. Many of your wounded brothers will be on the ground and are disabled and have Social Security, and they may, anything can happen, and if they do have to move because of rent, you have to have an open policy where you, as James said, I charge them that have power in their hand of wealth, rich, and believe me, rich is more than what you need in some situations. Communicate, be ready to distribute. In the policy or in the function of the churches now, and I have to speak very blunt, we bring tithes, we bring offerings, everyone gets up, say I tithe, and God sustain my house, God sustain my whole life, because I tithe to God. And I understand obedience and faith, and God does show up, and He does show out many times. But to say there won't be any tribulation when Jesus Himself said there will be tribulation in the last days, the moon will turn to blood, and ethnicity groups will rise up, nation against nation. We see that. We see the whirlwind of the earthquake. So tribulation is part of it. We're in that situation for those that are working poor, sleeping in their cars, believe me, they are going through tribulation right now. So some people, it just hasn't touched them yet. The inflation, the food, ground beef was in one Walmart. It was $11. Next $13.94. Next $21. So you have inflation because of COVID-19. Shipping, this is what they say. Goods and services take longer to get here. So prices go up because of supply and demand. So you have a lot of people that are suffering. So if you're going to tell them to support your local church, what I'm asking is that you also keep in mind Joseph. Joseph was there to sustain people in the natural realm. He was not there to give them sermons. He was there to literally do capitalism for the sake, or trade for the sake of sustaining the people. Heathen, stranger, and his own. That was his purpose. Because of what? Of famine, tribulation, hard times. So he's a good model. With Joshua 1, they all went into the promised land. They helped each other. The tribe of Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad were commanded to help each other. And you'd be put to death if you didn't want to help your brother. Those tribes had already had their house and their Cadillac, put it in modern terms. But they were told you can't be comfortable. Book of Amos, the leaders were comfortable. And the Bible says that they said, give ye, is what the prophets and the priests love to say. And the gap between the setting in the book of Amos, read it, was the rich and the poor. You got Amos, Micah, Jeremiah, Zephaniah. You have Isaiah. You have these people that went into captivity because of sexual immorality, but first and foremost, oppression. They begin to diss Leviticus 25 dealing with land laws that they didn't want in the seventh year give to the poor. That's why he said bring all the tithes into the stores. They had stopped giving tithes to the poor in the seventh year, and in the third year to the widow, the father, and the stranger. Everybody wanted to be rich. So by the time you hear the Malachi 3:10 and 11, where they were cursed, yeah, they were separated. They went into captivity. Why was that? Because they did not keep God's system. God always has something. Not the government, not unemployment, not SSI, not disability from an entity or a state. The Hebrews were to be a peculiar people, people set aside for God's purpose and display. And when they chose to do the heathen thing and vex and oppress and scheme how to take away property, like Jezebel, who was the King Ahab's wife, coveted the land of a young man whose land was close by the palace, and they knew, King Ahab knew that the properties go down to the next generation, so they always have a roof over their head. But yet they killed the man and took the property. So anything dealing with property, you better believe the spirit of the enemy is moving through oppression, through tribulation. So it is up to us to do the Joshua 1 thing without killing everybody, but killing the spirit of poverty and the spirit of the oppressor, the financial Goliath, addressing the issue and not be what some rappers would call, some of us, crooked cowards. We don't want to be crooked, man. If we're going to lean on tithes and we're going to lean on offering, we have to lean on it in its context. Tithing is fine, pay the church bills. Make sure you please take care of your pastors. People, this is not designed to take you back or cause heresy or division. This is designed to move you forward into the sincerity of the proof of your love that you say that you have for the Lord. Notice what he always does. There was a man on the ground, but the righteous didn't pick him up, the heathen did. We see that today. Took him to the hospital, paid the bills twice. Shout out to the churches that paid off hospital bills in the Midwest. But what I'm saying, it's a critical hour. It's crucial for us to look at helping each other in the local churches. So you also will make an impact to their relatives, which will be a witness of the sincerity of the proof of your love for the brethren in the gospel. And by that love, all men will know that you are his disciples. God bless you.